the team you're playing is the LA Galaxy. You can never rest easy, 'cause the team you're playing is the LA Galaxy. Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
California. What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, October 24th, just a couple days away from the LA Galaxy kicking off their 2024 postseason against the Colorado Rapids. That game coming up on Saturday night at 8 p.m. We hope you have your tickets there. We hope you're going to join us at the stadium. Galaxy getting ready to start that postseason run. Today, we have salary updates. We have wild card information. All right, we have a bunch of stuff, including MLS Finalist Awards, and then, of course, we are getting you ready, very ready, for this game coming up against the Colorado Rapids on Saturday night. Game one of the best-of-3 series. So, a lot to get to, a lot to talk about. In order to help me do all that, we're glad to have her back on the show. It's been much too long. It is the one, the only, Sophie, the Cannon Nicolaou. Soph, how are you doing?
At ease, my G's, at ease. It's playoff time. Josh, good to be back with you and the squad.
It feels different. It feels like it's the playoffs. I don't know if you didn't watch some of the wild card games, even though those are like almost outside the playoffs, you're playing to get into the playoffs, right? You have that one game, that type of thing. Even though there was an edge. There was an edge being played. Atlanta going up to Montreal. You had Vancouver coming down to Portland. There were some wild games in the wild MLS. This is what it's all about. So one game can sometimes determine your fate. You play it wrong, you go right home sometimes. Not the best of three, but there's ramifications for everything.
Yeah, I guess you have an edge unless you're the Portland Timbers.
Those poor fans. Those, they're like, oh, we got a midweek game. I got to get off a little bit early. I got to do all this. I gotta get ready. And then they get there and they're losing 3-0 in the first 30 minutes. I mean, like 31st minute, it was 3-0 to Vancouver, and it got worse from there into the 5-0 realm. And just things can go sideways very, very quickly. And
they can. And you need, you said it's playoff time and it is different. This is what I love about MLS, right? Supporters Shield, huge respect. It's not easy winning the Supporters Shield, but MLS Cup is what this is all about. This is what the league is built on. And I'm just wondering too, it is so different that I've started holding like things during the show, just to hold on tight to stuff. And I'm holding on to my boomerang this evening. Right. And it's that type of, it's not superstition time, but it's like hold on to stuff kind of time.
It is, if you have a heart condition, the playoffs and quite honestly, the sport of soccer, football is not for you. You should take up something calming like golf or something. And I love golf. That's not a knock. I'm just saying golf. There's a real amp up. There's a real, like this is advanced. It gets more and more crazy every time you go, and now you're sort of in this zone, this waiting zone, this everybody's waiting. We got to talk to Mark Delgado. We got to talk to Mickey Imane today. By the way, you're not going to get many quotes from Mickey today, but the fact that he went up there and they're like, okay, we're going to talk to Mickey, and we're like, oh, okay, who's going to be his translator? No translator. Mickey going sand translator, and he's like, please be very slow. My English is still not good, right? The whole deal. And so we had to work our questions in order so he could understand them, and he asked for clarifying things. We were working through words the whole time, and then when he got done, he sort of said that he goes, not bad. When the first time I came here, I couldn't speak English at all. He goes, and now the end of the season, I'm speaking some English, right? And everybody gave him a little clap.
Oh man, I love that. He had his Gio dos Santos moment, didn't he?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So much fun. So anyway, Miki was there. By the way, if you're starting from the very top of this, which you should, I'd like to mention that we did have some new music we got to play there. An LA Riot Squad member, Art Robles, going under the name Stopper, put this out with our very own Ray Plaza. I claim him as my own, being he did our music on the podcast. But Ray is really talented composer in his own right. So he was helping out Stopper, we'll call him Stopper, with this Never Rest Easy. And this is a song they used to play a long time ago. I think it goes all the way back to possibly even the Rose Bowl, where they would walk into the Rose Bowl and he would play this on his acoustic guitars, like they sort of went in. And so you hear the acoustic guitar in the middle there. That's sort of a throwback. But Never Rest Easy is the name of it. If you go to Ray Plaza on Spotify, you can find that song there. You can download it, so that way you can rock it on the way to the stadium. So big shout out to Ray, big shout out to Arts, and of course under the name Stopper. So that's fun. It had a nice groove. I played it for you before we started, and we were both sort of like little jamming, right?
Yeah, I was finding my groove. I was doing my white girl overbite move, and you know what I loved about it? When you played it to me before we came on air, I thought you had a boombox and you were putting a cassette tape in it.
You could hear it.
Yeah, you can hear it. And by the way, the intro today was epic. If that didn't get the G's all G'd up, I don't know what will. And for anyone who's watching the Rams game, shame on you. You should be listening here and preparing yourself for the playoffs.
You can listen and watch at the same time. That's I'm okay with that. The Dodgers are starting tomorrow too. I mean, the whole just city of Los Angeles is a buzz lately. I mean, the Chargers aren't horrible. I lost they're not great either. They just lost to Arizona. You know, the Lakers, they're playing again. You got the Ducks, you got the Kings. I know people, the Ducks, how dare you say that? Yes, the Ducks down where I live, the Ducks, the Kings. Actually, I stayed up and watched like the third period of a Ducks game a couple nights ago. I haven't done that in forever. Fun story was whenever I first got divorced, one of the first things I did was go to a Ducks game by myself. I was like, I'm going to I did all these. I went to the movies by myself. I was like, oh man, I'm free, yay, as one possibly does. And I went to a Ducks game. And the great thing is, if you're only one person, there are seats down at the glass that you can get in the last 45 minutes before the game that are like $80, and you're like, okay, I'll sit on the glass right behind the goal for $80. So yeah, it was a good time. So
totally. No, I love doing a dinner on your own, or a cinema outing on your own, or going to a hockey game on your own is quite a big one. Well done, Josh.
Not controversial unless you have to be going to Disneyland by yourself. Possibly the most fun you'll ever have at the House of the Mouse. Just saying, it's great to share it with somebody, Sophie. It's great to have fun, but single rider line, walk as fast as you want between the rides, ride only what you want to do, stop and eat when you want to eat. It's just, I enjoyed that part of it. It was a lot of fun. So that's just
I have a confession to make. Yes. I have a confession to make real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am not a fan of Disneyland unless there is some type of alcohol involved or a child that I can have fun with.
Okay.
I don't understand adults who just go to Disneyland without children.
But you didn't grow up here.
But I went to Disney World when I was like 14. I went to Florida, baby. I did the whole Orlando thing.
I feel like it's different. I feel if you grew up in the House of the Mouse, there's a difference that's sort of like, because that's my childhood. Every time I go there, it's my childhood. I just get to relive that every time I go. So it's we were going constantly growing up. So anyway, I don't disagree. You can do, as I say, please don't go to Disneyland because you make it crowded for me. So, just. A bit
like me going to Thorpe Park then in England.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it is this to continue the craziness that everybody's talking about this weekend and all the things that are happening. Dodgers are all playing in the World Series, right? You have USC and UCLA women playing at Dignity Health Sports Park on Sunday for, I believe, the Big Ten championship. So UCLA,
Really? I would like
USC.
to
Wait to hear this. You can go, Sophie. You know why? Tickets are free. Admission is free. You can just go. So if you're there on Saturday night, you can come back the next day and go. I swear, I read the tickets were free because I was going to be like, maybe I need to get some tickets from somebody. And then I heard that tickets were free. Somebody check me on that. But no, that was I read
Before
that.
You get everyone excited.
They're like, oh, they show up to the game. They're like, Guesman told me I could get in for free. Somebody check me, but I'm 99% sure I read that this morning whenever I was looking to see if I needed tickets. So, there's just sports all around, and why not? LA is the epicenter of sports all around the world. Why not make it one? And the LA Galaxy starting this weekend in the postseason certainly helped that. Now, we did see some wild card games, as we alluded to, and we talked already about the Portland, Vancouver. Remember that Vancouver had to travel down to Portland, even though Vancouver was the 8th seed and Portland was the 9 seed, because there was a motocross at Vancouver Stadium, and so they couldn't host the game. So Vancouver traveled down, and we all said, that's it. That's it for Vancouver. See you later, Vancouver. Have a nice day. Oh, the playoffs. Oh, how much fun they can be. And again, Vancouver beats Portland 5-0. The best quotes came out of this game, though. And I will sit there. Whenever Phil Neville was asked about hosting the game, even though they were the 9 seed and Vancouver was the 8 seed, Neville responded, God is a Timbers fan. And then after the game, somebody asked Vanni Sartini, who's the head coach for Vancouver, about that quote, and Sartini, the guy just has great quotes. He's a little crazy. He's a little fun. He gets sent off way more than most coaches. Like, he's one of those guys. He said, God can be a Timbers fan, but God doesn't exist for me. So Santini just sort of coming in there and ruining it. By the way, one of his players, I think this was on the broadcast, one of his players was asked what it was like to have the assistant coach coaching rather than Vanni Sartini. And he said, well, the assistant coach is a little less Italian. Right. And I was like, that explains it. That's one of those things that you can do it. So 5-0 on that one. The other game was a little crazy as well. You had Montreal hosting Atlanta United. These are the 8-9 seeds. And it was Atlanta winning 2-0 at halftime. So Atlanta came in, they're on the road, they come through, they're winning 2-0 at halftime, and Montreal scored 2 goals in that final 45 minutes. I believe one of them was pretty near stoppage time. And then it went away, and then it went to penalty kicks. Remember, in these games, and in the game that the Galaxy will play, if it's tied after 90 minutes, directly into penalty kicks. That's it. There's no extra time, no nothing. So they go directly into penalty kicks, where Atlanta won 5-4 to advance. So Atlanta United making a little noise on their side of the bracket. On the eastern side, of course, they will now have to face Miami. And so we can go to and look at the bracket here, Sophie, and we now have the 1 seeds filled out. So it will be LAFC and Vancouver. I believe they're playing on Sunday, and then Miami hosting Atlanta, and that game is tomorrow night on Friday night. We can go back to the schedule here a little bit. Look at that. There it is, 5:30. How nice of Atlanta, all the way up in Montreal. Now have to make it all the way down to Miami. Wow. On short. They played on Tuesday night, so now it's Friday. So they'll play on Friday night in Miami, 5:30 p.m. It is Miami hosting Atlanta United, and that game is free on Apple TV. Just letting you know. In fact, all of these first round matchups are free on Apple TV, so you can watch them. We already know about the LA Galaxy, of course, hosting the Colorado Rapids. You have Orlando hosting Charlotte, and then you have LAFC hosting Vancouver. And then we get into some of the other ones that we have here. You have Columbus, who's going to host the New York Red Bulls. You have Cincinnati hosting NYCFC. And then on the other side, it's going to be RSL hosting Minnesota and Seattle hosting Houston. All right. So those games also coming up in this next week. So pay attention as it all comes through. That's it is. Looking at this bracket, though, Soph, does anything jump out to you? Either Eastern, Western, however you want to look at it.
You know, in the first round, I'm always looking for where are the potential upsets. There's bound to be an upset somewhere. Are Atlanta going to beat Miami? Probably not.
Right.
The Vancouver LAFC game I find very intriguing. I do. In the end, after the heartbreak of the Steres goal and just the theater of that and what it felt like a gut punch at the time, it feels like LA Galaxy are on the right side of the draw. But these are some really good matchups, and there's some really good teams. But I'm not sure. Do you see a first round upset Cincy? I mean,
So I don't have a lot of faith in New York City. Otherwise, I would say that I think Cincinnati is right for the picking. I've never felt like they have completely clicked this entire season, although I think they finished out pretty strong, so they're okay. I mean, the team, I think that the worst team coming into the playoffs has lost 4 games in a row would be the Colorado Rapids, the one the LA Galaxy are playing. Now, people I think are fairly well aware with my roulette theory, which is if it keeps coming up red, that means that the chances of it being black are much higher, which of course is not true because in every spin it's not 50-50 because there's a green spot, but it's 50-50 black and red either side. So it's, I always say that, hey, maybe something's coming up. So I look at that one. I think that Houston's going to be a problem. I don't know if that's true. Did you mute there, Soph? Did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
here.
good.
Yeah.
But no, looking at Seattle and Houston, I mean, the 4-5s, it's hard to say that's an upset, but you could see Houston beating Seattle there. If you go to, like the 6-3, I don't believe that much in Minnesota to think that Minnesota is going to overturn. But I mean, that one's kind of ripe for the upset. The real upset probably is the 7-2 on both sides, New York Red Bulls and Columbus Crew. I have a lot of faith in Columbus Crew, but the New York Red Bulls have played some high quality soccer. It just doesn't feel like, again, but look at what just happened. Eric and I said we would never release the text messages that we put back and forth. So before the Portland-Vancouver game, because we were like, man, Portland's going to run right over these guys. This is going to be over real quick. Portland is the team. Watch out. Portland's going to rumble through that Western Conference. Everybody should watch out for Portland. They're hot. They got Evander. They got the whole thing. And literally 30 minutes into the game, he's like, we should never tell anybody we talked. Right. And I'm like, yeah, we just keep it between us. I go, if we die, come get my phone and clear my history. All right. That's a standing
more
rule
reasons
anyway.
than,
exactly.
more reasons than just that.
Exactly. But no, you look at those and it feels right now like I feel very much like there's nothing creative in this. But I mean, Charlotte and Orlando, I actually really like Orlando. Orlando could be a problem on the Eastern side. I think Houston could be a problem on the Western Conference. I think that's the team where I feel like there's going to be upsets.
So one of the reasons I picked this, like Cincy and NYFC, right, is the coach of Nick Cushing is being linked to the Arsenal women's job, and I thought that it was an interesting time for that story to kind of be breaking. I'm sure going into a playoff game, that's the last thing that they need. The 4 losses for Colorado really bugs me.
Yes.
And I hate to say that out loud, but I also, maybe after the way the game in Houston ended, you feel like that was a good slap in the face for LA Galaxy at the right time.
Yes.
Because, it's like Greg said in that presser, right? Because I had asked him, You asked him a really good question where he talked about learning the lesson of if that's a playoff game,
right?
There's no going back, right? This is, and I thought that was a really honest and good response. And then when I asked him, because I really felt that, especially Paintsil, I didn't want to say them by name, but Paintsil and Pooch were not locked into the final whistle. They kept looking at the referee. They seemed like blow the whistle. And Maya said, when I asked him the question, he said he felt like the 3 minutes was fair because of the VAR and all that.
Right.
However, I think that came, now when you look back on it, that was exactly what LA Galaxy needed. Because you don't want to get too cocky. I have a feeling, not because of Greg, a player like Ricky, he can get a little bit cocky, right? I'm not saying Maya is a good captain and he can kind of bring in, and the way he handled himself in that press conference, I thought was first class. Talk about accountability and responsibility. So I feel like that was a really good moment. Otherwise, I would be extra worried about a 4-loss team trying to find their groove at some point at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, so we got to talk to Greg Vanney today, and I'm sure we'll drop little paraphrases.
I missed the presser today.
It was good. It was quick. I mean, for the most part, everybody just wants to play. We talked to Mark Delgado. We talked to Miki Amane. Mark is a no-nonsense guy, especially whenever it comes to like before a playoff game. He's like, nothing matters. All that matters is this game. And that's oversimplification and broad paraphrasing, right? But that's the attitude I get from him is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how we lost. And I said, I almost said to him, I asked him, I said, you were on the bench. You didn't get to play. Is that always hard? He goes, it's always hard when you don't get to play. He goes, of course. He goes, but it doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't matter. We're throwing that away. Yeah, it was disappointing. Everybody here is disappointed. We're ready to go now. Now, who cares what happened? Now we're ready to go. I asked Greg Vanney, though. I go, Greg, did you get to watch any of the wild card games? Sometimes I don't know if they watch them or not. It's sort of like it's not really affecting you, but do you watch? Greg's a football junkie, right? He's one of those guys who's like, if it's on, I'm watching it, right? The whole deal. So I would imagine he did. But my whole thing was, what lessons can you learn from watching those games? And I knew what lesson he would pull from it because I think it's the lesson every Galaxy fan who watched any of those wild card games was that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your seed is. It doesn't matter what your record is. It doesn't matter whatever. If you come in thinking for a second that you have it easy, you are done. This is the playoffs that we talk about the percentages, the 1 or 2 extra percent that separates the really good from the bad in Major League Soccer. You're talking about the letdown of 0.5% for the Portland Timbers, and they got smacked one of the worst playoff losses in MLS history, 5-0, and they now get to sit with that for the rest of the season. That's it. No more. Those are the lessons you have to learn, Soph. And I think, it's sort of Greg Vanney hit it in Houston. Hey, did you feel this? Yeah, this feels really bad, but imagine if that was in the playoffs and you guys just got knocked out and you'd have to live with that.
Yeah, and you could feel that, and he's very good at transmitting, to us what he talks and says to them. You can sometimes almost feel like you're in the dressing room hearing Greg kind of like, go through his routine with them and stuff. I don't think Greg Vanney. This is the difference, right? I'm not a huge Phil Neville fan, and that probably stems from the Manchester United-Arsenal rivalry from back in the day. But I think he's overblown as a manager and he's not a closer. And I bet you, right, the $10 I have in my pocket, that Greg would never say anything like Phil Neville said before the game.
Right.
And that sets the tone for your team. It was almost like we're playing at home. We've got our crowd. We've got Timber Joey ready to chop up some wood. We're good to go. I think that is an irresponsible, cocky comment from a manager who hasn't shown or illustrated that he can close anything.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. By the way,
I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but I just think that type of bravado before a playoff game, when you kind of got lucky you were playing at home, and instead of being humble about it, you're going off like talking about God and, getting lucky. Like you had won the game before you even kicked off.
Right.
Big mistake.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the other thing that I took from Portland's disaster is that if you want to play half-cocked defense in the playoffs, that, there's going to be a lot of goals scored on you, right? And I think that's a danger for the LA Galaxy, right? Because we've talked about it. Their strength is in scoring goals. Their strength is in possession. Their strength is in playing through the middle, through the midfield, and then finding the outlets on the outside. Their strength is, quite honestly, I think a lot of times their strength is defending in transition. It's defending in set pieces. It's defending in lower blocks towards the end of the game, as we saw against Houston. Galaxy get into low block defense, and they have a whole bunch of problems and set pieces. So my whole thing is that there's the cliche of defense wins championships, and I think that it certainly can. Because things get a little bit tighter in the playoffs. Things get a little bit harder. The goals are a little bit harder to score. Everything ratchets up just a little bit. And that means that if you're the LA Galaxy defense, that you have to step it up a little bit more. Well, what better way to learn your lesson that this is all coming to a head and you better be ready right now than having that happen against Houston, right? And then watching what happened against Portland, and then watching the first game, the Montreal and Atlanta game, because Atlanta's cruising 2-0, game over, baby. We got this in the bag, no problem. It ends up being 2-2 and they go to penalty kicks. So the game is never over until it's over. Defense is going to have to win the LA Galaxy a championship. The Galaxy will score goals, but can they keep people from scoring? So this defense will have to be stout enough, not perfect, not wonderful, not amazing, outstanding, but it's going to have to be stout enough to support the goals that the LA Galaxy are going to score. And all of this is going to be a lot harder than you think it's going to be, and you better be prepared for that battle.
Totally.
That's what it feels like watching the wild card games through this last week and through the LA Galaxy's loss to Houston. It seems like all these lessons are jumping out and slamming people in the face. You're like, pay attention. This is what's happening. Maya Yoshida, I think, got it immediately after the game.
Immediately.
You and I talked to him, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he immediately. And look, I know that this team is very different to last season's team, right? And this is Greg's team in his image more than any team that he has had since he's been at LA Galaxy. And I feel this is going to be the time where we see MLS Cup winning Greg Vanney. And that matters. And you would say, well, Sophie didn't show it in the other playoff, Well, this is the team. It's complete now. And I think we're going to see him go through the processes of, for example, Pec and Paintsil, Paintsil may have played at that level at different clubs. Pec is a young player. He's going to be able to manage the emotions. And we have an emotional team, right? They do run high on emotions. Ricky is numero uno at that. But if you translate that emotion into really good productivity and, you don't want to be emotionally get involved in challenges, do stupid things. Those things that we saw in the regular season have to be eliminated. And I think this is where Greg has to be the man and show them the way he did when he won MLS Cup with Toronto. His experience here is going to be more important than any other run they've had in the playoffs because the expectations, Josh, are exceptionally high.
Yeah, I asked Mark Delgado about that. I go, because of how good you played this year, because of the fact you guys were in first, finished in second, like the expectations, are they higher? Do you feel he said the answer is yes, absolutely, they're higher. Everybody expects. You go back to this bracket. Do you expect the LA Galaxy to lose to Colorado Rapids? Nope, you don't. Do you expect the LA Galaxy to lose to Real Salt Lake or Minnesota? Nope, you don't. Do you expect then that they'll possibly face LAFC in the Western Conference Finals, and that's where the LA Galaxy have their biggest test possibly before an MLS Cup? Yes. That's where you expect it. That is the expectation for this team. You can't be in first and second place the entire season and sit there and say anything less than the Western Conference Finals is where you expect to be. So we know that the expectations are higher. And Mark Delgado acknowledged it, but he also said that you're with the LA Galaxy and the expectations are always higher with the LA Galaxy. He goes, we heard it from fans. Every year since I've been here, at the beginning of the year, we expect you to win trophies. He goes, and so we already know. Nobody has to tell us. Nobody has to raise the expectations for us. We already know that the expectations are that we are competing for an MLS Cup, and that's what we have to go out and do. Again, I always make people sound really good whenever I'm paraphrasing, but that is basically, more or less what Mark Delgado said.
I totally agree with him when you're the team with the 5 stars on the shirt, of course. But the reality, Josh, is in those other seasons, it was all about hope. And it's the hope that kills you, right? And 100%. Also hope is not a plan. This season, this team can go all the way. And I think they kicked themselves in the foot early enough without even playing a playoff game to realign themselves and realize what's at stake. And I think that is fundamentally important going in to these first round of matches with Colorado.
But we go back to expectations a little bit. I went, again, I was sort of looking at some of the history and just trying to figure it out. But since 2017, this is the 3rd trip to the playoffs for the LA Galaxy. Did it in 2022 and 2019. All right. They should have gotten in 2018. They didn't. Should have gotten in, I believe, in 2021 was the one where they lost on the last day and didn't make it, but they didn't. But as I think K-Back said on Monday, he goes, yeah, but they're like squeaking into the playoffs isn't like a play made, this great team that you're just going to do these things. Just getting to the playoffs doesn't mean that you've really done anything in Major League Soccer, which is correct. And that's why, again, everything is sort of ratcheted up higher. I mean, in 2019, they finished 5th in the 5th seed. So that's, not a horrible spot. They were 4th seed in 2022. So it's almost...
And that loss was a heartbreaker in 2022.
Right. They beat Nashville in 2022. And then they went and had to play LAFC in the Western
Correct.
Conference semifinals. Same result in 2019, which is the LA Galaxy played against Minnesota. As the number 5 seed went to the number 4 seed, we all remember they went on the road, they won that game, and then they had to come back and go to LAFC, and they lose in the Western Conference semifinals again. The LA Galaxy now know what their demons are, right? I think the title of this is like Road to Redemption. And it's not just, yes, it was about the Houston game, but it's about so much more than that, right? Because you're talking about a team that's only made the playoffs 3 times since 2017. You're talking about a team that has gotten knocked out of the Western Conference semifinals by their biggest rival the last 2 times they were in the playoffs. You know, it's sort of like, does God have a sense of humor? You know, is this sort of the thing? Are these 2 teams drawn to each other in this Western Conference final? It feels that way. I think most pundits sort of have it that way too, that the Galaxy are the second best team or the best team in the Western Conference. They finish tied on points. You can split a hair between the 2. I know that whenever I talk to Scott French, who is a longtime soccer reporter, he says he likes LAFC because he thinks they're a little bit more of a complete team. I understand that thinking, but I've also watched them squander a lot of chances this year. Have that being said, they have the same points as the LA Galaxy, right? Same number of wins as the LA Galaxy. You can go through all these things, and these 2 teams are basically just a hair's split away. A bad penalty kick call in the first game between these 2 is the only difference from really probably a 1-1-1 finish for the season, and having it be all level, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. That type of thing. So there's not a lot spending. So it just feels like that momentum is there. Having said that, this is us looking way past Colorado, and that's probably not a good thing. There are 3
That's not
games.
what Greg's doing, exactly.
That's right. So,
but that's what we do. So, you know, it's not just about all of the stats and kind of making up. And it's funny because I called my Monday show is all about, you know, Arsenal lost to Bournemouth 2-0. This was the week for me for them to have redemption. You know, the journey I followed with LA Galaxy is very similar to Arsenal. You've got a storied team that's fallen on its backside, had to be rebuilt, inside, outside. You know, what's happened at LA Galaxy, the team that's there now, what Will's done, what everyone's done, the scouting team. You are seeing the result of it on the pitch. We even talked to Greg few times this season about not having all that extra responsibility, being with his team, spending time with the guys, you know, feeling more like a coach than he's ever had done so since he's been here. It's all leading and building to this. But the bottom line, Josh, is at the end of the day is this is the narrative everyone wants. Yeah. LAFC and LA Galaxy in the Western Conference final, with the other narrative, which everyone's hoping for, is which LA team's going to play like Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and Inter Miami, and the Beckham reunion, right? Who doesn't want to see that? Beckham versus his old team. So there's so much at stake, but the bottom line is Galaxy fans want revenge and LAFC fans want to pile on more of the misery.
Right.
And it doesn't get much better than that.
100% agree. That's where it sits. Before we start to talk about Colorado, because we are entering that phase of the
that
show.
Team?
Yeah, that team. Remember the one that they're supposed to play next on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, 8:15 is your kickoff time. It's going to be late, Sophie. I'm going to have to like drink a coffee. I don't drink coffee, but maybe I'm going to have to hit Starbucks on the way up. Get a little white girl coffee, you know. I'm ready to go.
I love that. When I RSVP'd, the team wrote back to me and said, I wrote back, said, can't wait, I'm all in for Friday. And they wrote me back and said, you do realize the game's on Saturday? And I'm like, it's been a long week. Yeah, I'll see you Saturday.
I meant Friday UK time. No, that doesn't work either.
No, it doesn't.
No, not at all. No, I'm with you. It's sort of a crazy day in all things. But one of the things that was released today, and we at least want to get you into the news and understand what the news is saying, was the LA Galaxy salaries and the salaries across the league. The only one we were really interested in, in all of this, is Marco Reus, because we didn't know how much money he was actually making. Guaranteed compensation is $1.2 million. That 1.216667. Lots of fun. Always, it's all about how it gets divided up. Just know, and there's lots of people who are saying, "Oh, well, that's too much money for him to make for when he joined and stuff like that." Well, this is like his yearly salary, 1.2. So he's making a fraction of that this year because he joined later in the year with the number of games that were left and all that stuff. So I mean, you know, Marco Reus is going to take home like $290,000 this year from the LA Galaxy. And then just understanding that there was other things in that deal, apparently, at least that's how it was reported. And the league was very apparently really strict on the I's and the T's of how it was worded and how it went through and make sure it was totally legal, especially after the LA Galaxy got caught cheating whenever it came to Christian Pavone. So there was a lot of emphasis on this number. So that $1.2 million for Marco Reus is a yearly number. So you will expect that I'm sure he'll get a slight raise next year, that type of thing. They usually have little ratchets that go up on year over year. But $1.2 million. Sophie, a guy who was playing, Champions League not too long ago, right? And everything else that was happening. $1.2 million, a pretty reasonable amount for one Mr. Marco Reus.
Yeah, as long as he plays better than he did in that Houston game. For me, Marco Reus is an impact player off the bench. We were talking about it with the Hammer, and I always felt that even when he signed, I said to you on the show, for me, he's the guy that you bring on with 20, 25 minutes to go, and this team has been run ragged, and they look at the sideline and they're like, oh, Marco Reus is coming on. I mean, maybe I'm being harsh, but...
I think you are, but that's okay.
Listen, we saw him play beautiful, fluid football with Ricky, in a couple of games. No doubt about that. But I think that Greg needs to be really smart how he's going to use him. And this could be a long road, and he's an older player. He's not used to the travel. He's not used, we're playing at home, but he's not used to certain aspects of the league. And it's much more intense, I think, than what the players who come from Europe think it is. He passes the ball backwards way too much for me. I'm all about possession, ball possession. I don't think he's been super effective off the ball. He does take runners with him, but I just think he needs to be a little bit more creative and not. He just seems to be playing frightened football. I don't know. He passes it back too much, and I just don't think Greg should be afraid to start him on the bench in some games.
Yeah, it very well could, and especially whenever the Galaxy go to Colorado, perhaps that's one, whenever you know that you have the altitude and everything. And I think Miki was saying that it was really dry, too. It wasn't just the cold, it was the dry. And yes, the that's mountain air for you, and it's going to be pretty chilly whenever they go. I think Marco Reus is probably more acclimatized to that than a lot of the LA Galaxy players, but that type of thing. But I think there's going to be moments where you're going to have to manage him and manage what he does. I'll say this, that whenever you see him play well and link up well with Ricky Puig, that's sort of the goal there. I don't know. And certainly Greg talked about making sure that he got Marco Reus minutes because he wanted to get him back and integrated. Remember, he was off for a couple of weeks whenever he had the injury. And so he's like, we needed to make sure he had minutes in that game. So that way he could be ready whenever it came to playoffs. And so I imagine he starts whenever he's going to start this game. I think that Greg Vanney will have, Mark Delgado. He has Gaston Brugman, who are able to back up and do the different things that he wants to do. I think Cerrillo's in there. So they have the ability to back him up and change things around him too. I just think the intelligence between him and Ricky Puig, especially whenever you watch Ricky play impatient football, I think, against Houston. That's always my biggest thing. I can tell when the Galaxy aren't going to play good is whenever they're impatient. And Gabriel Pec was impatient. Ricky Puig was impatient. And
how many games has he played, Josh?
Royce? It's a great question. It's not that many. I can look it up though. What do you think the?
Because I think that beautiful, fluid, crazy football with Ricky was the home game. Who's the game against?
Don't
brain fart.
I'm trying to think of which one the Austin game.
The Austin game.
Mm-hmm. So let's see.
Go on. How many has he played?
Yeah, he has 4 games played. 6 games played, 4 games started. He has almost 360 minutes so far with the LA Galaxy.
I've probably seen that fluidity with Ricky twice.
Yeah, but I mean, but you have to say that you're getting a guy who just drops in, who just comes in. You're starting to try to get him acclimated. I think we saw that towards the end of his acclimation process, and you're like, oh, this is really starting to play well. Then he gets hurt, then he goes away, then he comes back, and you're like, hey, that wasn't as good. And you're like, yeah, I wouldn't expect that he is as good whenever you're looking at what he was whenever he was playing games back to back to back and sort of getting ready and being able to play himself all the time. I don't think Marco Reus is going to be the problem, right? I mean,
I'm
Molde,
not.
yeah.
This isn't a kind of. I love Marco Reus. I've enjoyed watching him play over the years. I wish he'd shoot. I mean, I just think there's two fundamental things that he's exceptionally good at. Right, controlling the ball, passes it backwards, and when he's had the opportunity to shoot, he passes it. Be selfish. So those are the things for me because he's so talented. He can make such a difference. And I just don't think he's been doing that other than maybe a couple games.
I think he has to understand that the players around him aren't as good as the ones that were previously around him, right? It's one of those, it's like, no, you were actually, I know maybe on the other teams you played that passing in this situation is what you would do because there's going to be another person who's more open. But in this particular case, yes, your shot is a little bit more of an angle. Your shot is but you have the best chance of scoring right now. You should probably shoot and score.
Right.
No,
that's a fair.
I think that's a maturity thing, and not saying Marco Reus needs maturing. It's just a maturity understanding the guys around him. And maybe maturity is the wrong word. It's just the recognition that he's whenever he's on the field, he's probably the second best player on the field, right, or the third best player on the field.
No, third currently.
I said third. I was there. I went Ricky. I went Pec, and then I went Reus.
Wrong order.
There's slander going on in the whole thing just because Gabriel Pec. I'll tell you what you see the difference of. We're eventually hopefully going to vote for player of the year for the LA Galaxy. Are you remembering that we're supposed to do that? Because we talked about it. But we were talking about player of the year and the whole deal. I get why people want to make Gabriel Pec the player of the year. Fine. I'm not going to argue overall, except that to me, it's so very clear that Riqui Puig is so much further ahead of Gabriel Pec. He just plays in a different position. If Riqui Puig was a winger and that was his main position and he was out there, then he should be scoring a lot of goals. Ricky scores a lot of goals, but he does it from a withdrawn sort of 10 from the backside, from feeding other guys and having them have to come back and feed him. If we're going to talk goals and everything else, but Ricky sets up a lot of Pec's goals, it's those types of things. So I don't care. It's 1A, 1B to me, but I'm
not saying that Pec is a better player than Ricky at this point in his career. I'm saying that he's had the better season. And
I understand that.
When you take out, was it a 4-game? I know that, was it you and Alex and Hammer who was saying to me, because I keep bringing up the games that LA Galaxy won without Ricky, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at how Pec started, slow burn, everyone started to have the Cabral panic, you know what I mean? Right. He has been, if you take him out of 4 games,
right,
I don't think this team is the same. I think, listen, they're both fundamentally important, and Ricky definitely is like pulls the strings and everything. But if you're talking about the most impact this season, for me, Gabriel Pec has been a revelation. I think he's been I actually think Gabriel Pec in 2 years, 3 years could be Duran, who's hitting goals off the bench for Aston Villa and playing in the Champions League. That's how much I rate Gabriel Pec.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be an extremely high dollar sale whenever he eventually goes. By the way, let's talk about Gabriel Pec because he is the only LA Galaxy listed in the finalist of MLS awards. That's right, MVP, Coach of the Year, all that stuff. The only person, the only player on the team, the only person, member of the LA Galaxy that was listed among the finalists is Gabriel Pec. Pec was named along with Luis Suarez, and of course, Luca Oriano from FC Cincinnati. So Luis Suarez from Miami, Gabriel Pec and Luca Oriano from FC Cincinnati. That's the only one there. Greg Vanney, I'll say this: if you have children in the room, cover their ears, earmuffs. Greg Vanney got screwed because they decided, and Damien had a great line because he tweeted, he goes, "Man, I thought Greg Vanney would have been in the Coach of the Year," and I go, "Well, he should have been. That's why you thought that." And he goes, maybe the games are on too late, right? Basically, the East Coast bias is in there. But I went and looked at it, and Armas took Greg Vanney's spot in there. It was Tata Martino. It is Wilfred Nancy, and it is Chris Armas, right? Those are the ones that got in there, and Chris Armas took the spot. Now, I put this out on Twitter in response to Damien. I said, you had a guy who took a team from 13th place to second. So that's a jump of 11 spots, right? That he took. They won 19 games. They were undefeated at home, but the guy whose team lost 14 games, Chris Armas, gets the jump over Greg Vanney when his team the Colorado Rapids was in 14th place last time. And at 14th place, he got him all the way up to 7th. Good job. That's a coach of the year. That makes no sense to me. People need to remove their heads before they start voting for some of this stuff. This was not only should Greg Vanney be included in this argument, he might win it. Whenever you look at what Tata Martino, Tata had to manage without Lionel Messi for half. Oh my gosh, with Sergio Busquets and Luis Suarez and all these
Jordi Alba.
Oh my God, poor Tata Martino. How did he ever survive? That's just ridiculous. By the way, Wilfred Nancy, always one of my tops on the list. I love that dude. I think he's amazing. I think he's the smartest coach in Major League Soccer. If he wins the award, I will have less to say about that. Fine. But you can't tell me that Chris Armas and Tata Martino deserve to be in over Greg Vanney after what the LA Galaxy did this year. So, and maybe that's because I'm a homer. Maybe because I like talking to Greg. I find him interesting and I get to do it all the time to listen to him talk about soccer. But he is among the smartest coaches in Major League Soccer. And he deserved to be on this list, and they got this wrong. But that doesn't surprise me. There's a strong East Coast bias for this stuff. By the way, I don't get a vote for this. Just letting everybody know.
Yeah, no, I concur and agree with everything. If I could stand up and applaud you, I would. And you know what? I think you could make the same argument for Steve Cherundolo on a different level, right? You could say that to finish first again, he got to a final. Okay, they didn't win it last year, but to be consistent, how many finals? I know it's outside of the league. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
3 Leagues Cup, US Open Cup, and then
what was it? Telling me that Chris Armas did a better job than even Cherundolo? Come on, let's have it right.
There was
look, he's done a good job.
Yes.
That team was a little bit broken.
Yes.
It's funny, I talked to Josh Kroenke about him and his hire. And, they have that, you can see the image of their managers, right?
Right.
McVay, Arteta, him. Little aggressive, young guys, and they had very high hopes for him. So, I think they'll be pleased with the job that he's done. But Greg Vanney, I think has been shafted big time here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to ask you, because there is the Arsenal Colorado Rapids tie-in there, that how much of that cross club stuff that you actually dive into at all is there reason to believe that the Kroenkes do care about the Colorado Rapids again? Or is this, we've seen Colorado be good, we've just never seen them be good consistently. It feels like they went out and spent some real money, focused some good players, and brought them in. Whenever you look at Jordi Mihalovic, Miles Robinson, right? So there's guys there that can absolutely play.
I think the Kroenkes, from my conversation with Josh, they're all in on that team. I think the experience of Arsenal has lit a fire in terms of refocusing and reinvesting in the Rapids. But for them, for a long time, I don't think they felt like they had the right guy. And the same thing happened at Arsenal, right? How can we find a Sean McVay for Arsenal? You bring in Mikel Arteta, seeing what Mikel Arteta's done at Arsenal. The same personality, similar with Chris in Colorado. And from my conversation with him in the summer, they're very excited about him and they have high hopes. And their goal was to get to the playoffs. And they're not mucking around. They're serious.
Yeah.
This is a much more serious Colorado Rapids team than we've seen in a really long time. And that's because it's coming from the top to the manager now that they found and they've been wanting to find for a long time.
Yep. By the way, I said Miles Robinson, I meant Reggie Cannon. Just confusing my left backs. Well, no,
I was into my.
You were into, yeah. Well, I was asking. That was an Arsenal connection there. I was thinking about that today, though. I'm like, what am I going to talk to Sophie about? I'm like, I wonder if there's a connection there. I wonder how much of it she sees whenever you're doing your Arsenal stuff and that type of thing. So it's really good insight. I'm glad that.
And know that McVay and Arteta are in a WhatsApp group together, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the WhatsApp group with
Chris
now
Armas is
because
there
they're very. the Rams and Arsenal are very connected. The marketing people, the PR people. When I saw that on the ground with the Rams, there's a real synergy. There's a real care. And you got to credit the Cronkies for kind of how they've pulled it together with their different teams from the different leagues and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's part of that pool now.
So interesting. Let's get to this Colorado game. Why not? We're already talking about the LA Galaxy host the Colorado Rapids. The LA Galaxy 19-8-7. Colorado Rapids 15-14-5. Again, there you go. 14 losses. But hey, coach of the year. We talked about it. This is like one of the most lopsided things coming into this. The Colorado Rapids have lost their last 4 games. As a matter of fact, the last time that they won a game was a 2-0 win against Toronto on September 21st. And then their last road game was August. The last time they won a road game, Sophie, was August 31st.
Wow.
Whenever they beat Dallas 3-2 in Dallas. All right, so this is one of those strange ones, but of course we don't have to go back that far in LA Galaxy history. Remember whenever the Colorado Rapids knocked the LA Galaxy out of the playoffs? I believe that was like a 2016. It may have been the last ride for Bruce. 2016 or 2015, I forgot to look it up before I came in here. But that history is there as well. The LA Galaxy winners over the Colorado Rapids both times this year. So something to pay attention to as we go into the playoffs is, can the Galaxy maintain that separation? It's one in which the LA Galaxy have mostly triumphed over the Colorado Rapids, but it has been outside of the last time that they actually, or the last time they played in Colorado, that 3-1 win that happened at the beginning of October. That was, I think, the first time in 7 years the LA Galaxy beat Colorado in Colorado. So the importance of this game gets ratcheted way up because everything can be happy. Everything can be good. But if the LA Galaxy, for some reason, let's say they're winning 1-0, or maybe they're winning, 2-1, and it's late in the game, and all of a sudden Colorado scores a late goal because, the Galaxy are going to have to prevent that from happening, right? This is going to be something that follows them, and the ghosts of Houston and the ghosts of this season are going to be, we're right around Halloween. The haunting will continue until you tell it to stop, right? This is one of those things. You're going to have to exercise those demons. Going to have to exercise the demons. That's my Jim Carrey impression. This room is clear.
You know who you sound like?
No, who?
You know that little diddly actor with the white hair? I forgot. He passed away earlier this year. He's a character actor, a comedian, funny, and he's kind of got that squeaky voice.
You're gonna have to look it up. Yeah,
he was in Sex and the City as well for a little bit. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah,
that's who you sounded like.
Okay, 100%. I'm happy that I was in Sex and the City.
I'm gonna have to look it up right now. Keep talking.
Yeah, no problems. But the bottom line is the Galaxy. This is something that can change very quickly, or if you'd like, very rapidly. There's going to be rapid puns throughout the rest of the show. So, you can be winning in this game. This home game is super important to win because going to Colorado is going to be a tough game. They're going to be, if you have won game 1, that going into Colorado, they're now fighting for their playoff lives. First team to win 2 games, that's it. There are no ties. It goes directly to penalty kicks right after this. So the LA Galaxy have to figure out how to win this game, do it comfortably, not stress themselves out about it, but you have to basically win this game at all costs. This is that important because if you don't, if for some reason something goes sideways and you are now mandating a win on the road in Colorado, you are coming to the wrong place if you think you're going to win another game in Colorado against Colorado whenever you're playoff line. I don't care if you're the LA Galaxy. I don't care who you are playing a team back up against the fence. They're stuck there. They know you want to put them in that situation. You want to make sure that the worst case scenario you have, if you are the LA Galaxy, Soph, is that you come back for game 3 to play at home. That's the worst case scenario, right? Because
worst case scenario.
Yeah, that's the worst case scenario that should be. Now, what's the real worst case scenario? Lose this first game and try to advance out of this. It is so important. There's strategy involved here, but bottom line is it doesn't matter what you have to do. You have to win that first game. And if you're Colorado, you're sitting there, man, all we got to do is steal the first game and life is pretty, right?
Yeah.
So very much in some ways it is like home and home, right? It's those home and aways. It's kind of like one game.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact is there's no aggregate score on this one. You could be out in 2 games if you lose those games, right? But the saving grace here is if you win one and they win one, you get to have a third one to play out. And you're the LA Galaxy, so you have home field advantage. That means you get to play at home. So that should be the worst case scenario for the Galaxy. Win the first game. Second game, try to put it away. If you can't put it away, that's okay, because the third game, you get it home and you can put them away. And
you can't let the fortress fall in game 1.
No.
Playoff.
No, because the whole year you set this as a fortress, right? So
yes.
you let the drawbridge come down, you let the walls be sieged. I'm trying all my medieval terms.
You're gonna do
yeah. If that happens, if you allow that to happen, then it all goes out the window. Nobody's scared of coming in anymore. Right now, everybody's scared of going in to play the LA Galaxy. At Dignity Health Sports Park. Yes. They don't lose there. Everybody knows it. And you need to keep that charade up as long as it can. Because it is a charade. It's momentary. This is something that will not... Guess what? Next year, the LA Galaxy are probably going to lose at home. It would be very unlikely to have back-to-back undefeated seasons at home. It hasn't happened that many times in LA Galaxy history or in league history overall. So something's going to happen next year that's going to be different. But this is the time. And you said it. This is the time. This team can win an MLS Cup. They may not be perfect.
It's the Tiger Woods intimidation syndrome, right? Before you even he beat people on the first tee while they were walking to the first tee.
Right.
So you got to keep that intimidation factor going, knowing your chances aren't that great playing LA Galaxy at home. So, and remember, they've got to be careful of, Colorado are going to do everything to win here. They want the upset, and we've got to be careful of the dark arts.
100%. This is one of those, especially for an LA Galaxy team that very much likes to it's like a snowball effect. If something goes bad, they're just like, oh my God, watch Joseph Paintsel, right? Watch Ricky Puig. Watch their shoulders drop whenever something Joseph Paintsel scores that goal and they call it back. He was never the same. That was it. He was done, And quite honestly, Greg Vanney said the team wasn't the same after that. You have to find the resilience in this. This is, there's going to be tough times in this. So, this is the MLS Cup playoffs. You should expect adversity. You should expect that you're going to have to come from behind to win some of these games. You should expect that you're going to get a horrific call because it's MLS refs and they're in playoff mode. And if you watched some of the calls that they were making in these games, listen, Portland, for as bad as it was, it could have been way worse because Chara deserved 3 yellow cards in the first half and he got 1. All right. So they could have been down a man too. So all of this stuff comes into play for the LA Galaxy whenever they take on the Colorado Rapids. I was looking at the roster and everything that we sort of saw. The 3-2 loss was the last one. So Colorado went to Austin on the last day. Austin beat Colorado 3-2. Mihalovic was back. He did get subbed in the second half. He is sort of in that question mark right now of whether or not he's going to play. This one is MLS Cup playoffs. Expect, unless there's broken bones, somebody's playing. Right? So Mihalovic is playing.
Totally.
Right? Unless he can't walk and he's in a wheelchair, he's playing. It doesn't matter. All right? So,
totally.
And that goes for the LA Galaxy. Let's give you a health update on the LA Galaxy. Greg Vanney declared everybody healthy. He said Marco Reus was fully training. He said that Joseph Paintsel had 1 extra day of rest after the game, but after that, he's been training the whole time. They wanted to give him an extra day because he was coming off injury, and they wanted to take an extra day, get right, get well, and he's been back in training. Julian Aude back in training. The only person who's not back is Cáceres, right? And I don't think that Cáceres will be playing at all again for the rest of the year, so I don't expect that. If that's a knee, they're listing it as a knee injury. Somehow I think it might be a different type of injury, but there's been just no update, no talk. There's no expectation that Cáceres will be back. So other than that, though, everybody's 100% ready, which means that you will have some decisions to make. Sophie's possibly playing somebody like Julian Aude instead of John Nelson, playing somebody like Marco Reus in there instead of, Gaston Brugman or Mark Delgado. Mark Delgado is now back from suspension, so he's available to play. So Greg Vanney has his full deck of cards ready and waiting for this game coming up against Colorado.
That's amazing, isn't it, though, to be going into the first round of the playoffs with pretty much everybody in tip-top shape.
Yeah. I mean, surely people are they have
oh, yeah, they're got.
Yeah,
that's just football.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
sports,
that's
right?
Sports, yep.
What's your who are you? What's your starting 11? The same as Houston?
Probably. I think it's pretty strong. I think Julian Alde provides more than what John Nelson can provide. So in a lot of ways, by the way, fully ready for Julian Alde to come off in the 70th minute when the LA Galaxy are winning 2-1 and put John Nelson back there. Like, that doesn't bother me at all.
He's been so good. Your boy,
so
John.
Yeah.
You've been championing him for quite some time.
He has been outstanding, and they're going to need his defense, right? They're going to need him to come in as well. So that's something that has to be there. Other than that, I think it stays. I think you don't touch it. You try to let it just gel, and you try to let it build in the playoffs. And you should expect the starting lineup to stay relatively the same. There might be a little switch out here. Look for little things like Mark Delgado moving in, or Reus, getting a rest and starting from the bench sometimes. Gaston Brugman coming in the second half, possibly, if Reus is done, if the Galaxy still need offense. Like, where does Delgado fit? You got Fagundes, who you can fit into some other places as well. I mean, and this is not a perfect world scenario either, because there's going to be knocks and everything else that factor into all of these games from here on out, that it will change and adjust little things. But the Galaxy have done that throughout the season, so I feel like they're pretty comfortable anywhere they want to move it.
Yeah. No. If he's going to start Reus, I wouldn't start him in Colorado. I would start, if he's going to start him if he's ready to go, and he's, of course he is. He'll start him in this game, but I wouldn't start him there.
Yeah, you don't have to, but you're also getting a full week off. That you're getting a full week, because they're not going back. They will play there on Friday, right? So it'll be Saturday and then a Friday. So for the most part, you're getting your full week.
I just think it's going to be a grittier game there that maybe he's not built for. So you save him. It's kind of what I said at the top of the show, impact player off the bench, but at home in the first game where the fans are going to kind of, expect to, not that Greg's going to pick a team because the fans want him to play. But he's the kind of player that, on the road in Colorado, I would save him if he's fragile.
Aaron has a $5 super chat, says thoughts on Tenorio article regarding the fall-spring MLS schedule. Possibility after the World Cup of MLS going to a fall-spring schedule, taking off basically the winter months, like 2 or 3 months in the wintertime. And then, it's sort of very much like Mexico having the two leagues, the two different seasons on either side. I believe it when I see it. I've been hearing these things for so many years that I don't really believe it, but this would be after 2026. If they were.
Do you like that?
Yeah. I kind of like it the way it is. Maybe that's just.
I like it the way it is.
It does not line up well for the summer transfer window, right? That's the whole thing that they're trying to align with the summer transfer window, which is when everybody does their biggest business, but in MLS, and especially this year, because the league crammed all these games early so they could take a month off to play Leagues Cup. Like they keep trying to, they're like, well, now there's this huge problem where the summer transfer window is, you don't get players for as long because we have to play so many games before Leagues Cup. It's like, well, then stop playing Leagues Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can't. It's monetization.
I know. But you're creating the problem.
Player welfare isn't important, but
money is, right? So anyway, and also Aaron talks about a rumor a few weeks back about a Boca player to LA Galaxy. I've been watching those, Aaron. I am. Now is not the time to be bugging people about transfer rumors during the playoffs. They're sort of like, leave me alone. There's a game on the whole thing. So we will get it here coming up, but we are not there yet. Flipman says, $10 super chat, feel really confident going to the first round of playoffs. Let's just hope these refs do a better job officiating and protecting the players. Salute to the COG. Thank you, Flipman, for the $10. We appreciate that. And Patrick, $10 super chat. Best podcast, best podcasters. Go G's. We're going to sweep Colorado and take the third weekend off. I like that. That's what it should be. I have things to do on that weekend. And so, let's make it happen. So let's, LA Galaxy, help me out on my scheduling, will you? So I can,
totally.
I can
you got
go
trains to ride. You got things to do.
I got trains to fix, trains to ride. We fix things more often than we actually get to ride on anything. I don't, if you're into like, a hobby where you get to do something, don't do large scale model railroading. We're always fixing something. By the way, a big shout. Yeah, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on.
I was just going to say big shout out to, I think I had 3 or 4 listeners who came over the last weekend, and we had the busiest weekend ever in the history of the club. So we did some like 4,300 rides or 4,200 rides. It was some ridiculous number. that we did over the weekend. So and we had a couple of G's show up, so it was nice to see. I didn't have to kick anybody off my trains, you know. So it was always nice. If you wear the wrong MLS jersey, I will just, even if you waited an hour, I just kick you out and make you go to the back of the line. That's not true at all. But it's fun.
The big cheese. The big cheese.
The big cheese. Yes. Sometimes. No, but what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was going to say, I was going to riff off the last super chat because, you know, the regular season is over. And I just wanted to say to you that you've done another outstanding job on Corner of the Galaxy, reporting, sharing, telling stories, conversing, engaging. You really have absolutely smashed it. And I know that everyone's excited and looking forward to the playoffs. And hopefully it'll be a long run in the playoffs to get even more Corner of the Galaxy episodes. But you really have done an incredible job. So not only have the team gotten to the playoffs, but Josh Guesman, you should also be commended for the season that you have had. Top of the league. You did come in second for me, top of the league.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Only as good as the team around you, as the LA Galaxy will tell you. Also the Galaxy helping out. Either be really good LA Galaxy or real bad. People love, whenever they're real bad, people love listening to the podcast. That way they can have their therapy sessions and do all that stuff. But being real good is also a real boon to the podcast. So we appreciate it either way. All right. Now it comes down to the time where we get to pick scores for this first one. This is the LA Galaxy facing off against the Colorado Rapids. This is game number 1 of the best of 3 series coming up on October 26th, Saturday night. 8 p.m. is your TV start time. 8. Now, see, they're saying 8:10 p.m. now on this. I was told 8:15 p.m. whenever I looked at the last schedule from the LA Galaxy. So now, while
saw 8:10 in the email, it was 8:10.
You tell everybody what you think is going to happen while I look stuff up. Correct.
So, so exciting. An 8:10 kickoff actually means that Josh and I will be getting home at midnight. So, you know, aside from that, no, I think it's going to be a great game. The atmosphere has been amazing this season. The fans need to bring it even bigger and better. Literally, the fans have deserved this run. I hope it continues. I hope it gets off to a really great start for them. I want to see LAFC and LA Galaxy make it to the final. And I think 3-1. I fancy Gabriel Pec to get a brace. And you know what? I think this is going to be the game where Joseph Paintsil actually gets a goal. We see him play with confidence from that goal, and he goes off to have a really good run and good run of form in the playoffs. The goalkeeper who did not make the top 5 Golden Gloves, and that's not all his fault, by the way.
Right.
But goalkeeper's going to be very important, and he's really got to just be locked in. And you know, no mistakes, no errand rules from the back. Yeah, I know Greg loves playing out from the back, but I'm telling you, when it gets to the playoffs, if you don't see it, don't play it.
Yep, 100%. I like that. 3-1 is a good call. I think because it's the playoffs, I will ratchet that back 2-1. I think it'll be a lot more tight. It'll be more tight than you want it to be, just because it's the playoffs and everything sort of feels that way. But it is key for the LA Galaxy. Get that first goal. If you get that first goal, you will be able to beat Colorado. And I think the Galaxy are head and shoulders above them in a lot of ways. That being said, it's the playoffs. You allow them to score the first goal, and now everything's on and everything's topsy-turvy, and now you have to go back and fight everything. Put me down for a Ricky Puig goal, because I always like the Ricky Puig goals in there, and I think a Pec goal is certainly on order as well. So 2-1 win for me for the LA Galaxy, and then they will then transfer over to that Friday game, which is on November 1st, Friday night, 6:30 p.m. is your TV start time on that particular one. All right. Anything else you'd like to talk about, Soph, or are we good?
You know, I've resisted for the whole show to say playoffs, you know, in the voice. And I'm very proud of myself. So just want everyone to know that. Also, the actor that I was referring to is Leslie Jordan.
Okay.
I thought you sounded more Leslie Jordan than Jim Carrey.
That's fine. That's fine. Jim Carrey. I don't know who Jim Carrey was channeling in that particular one, either. So maybe he was also channeling Leslie Jordan, right? 100%.
But no, it's been great. And I've had, when I've been on this season, I've had such a great time. The team's amazing. Everyone's amazing. everyone at the club. It's been fun, and long may it continue. And, I hope the fans get an extra something to cheer about on Saturday night.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Soph, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and then we'll get on out of here. Go ahead for it.
Give us a follow at Highbury Squad, at Soccer Diva on the old X. And if you like a little Premier League, I had Stevie Nicol on the show today talking about the Arsenal-Liverpool game. Always good to see Stevie. We've been talking football for 10 years. So thank you, Josh, and thank you, everyone.
Awesome. So thanks so much. If you're looking for me on Twitter and X, it's at Guesman at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com for all of our shows. Go to YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple iTunes, Google Play, any of those places you can find our podcast. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that fun stuff. All right, LA Galaxy, game number 1 of their postseason coming up on Saturday, 8 o'clock against the Colorado Rapids. We will be back on Monday to give you a recap, get you ready for the next game. All that fun stuff is headed your way for Miss Sophie, the Cannon, Nicolaou. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye.